Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us this afternoon. I'm Alex Hattingh, Chief People Officer for Employment Hero, where our mission is to make employment easier and more valuable for everyone. So I'm sure you've all heard and read about the Great Resignation as we start to emerge out of our COVID pandemic. But the question is, will it impact us in our organisations? To find out, we surveyed 1,000 employees in a number of countries. And so what did our insights report tell us? In Australia, 40% of employees surveyed are planning to look for a new job in the next 6 months. 15% are already currently on the hunt for a new role. And a whopping 66% of younger workers aged between 18 and 24 are also already looking for a new role. So why are people looking to leave their jobs? Our research showed us the top reason was lack of career opportunities at 31%, no pay rise at 30%, and lack of appreciation and recognition at 26%. Last week, I had the pleasure of speaking with Sinead Connolly and Kate Jolly about how to attract the best talent to your business. And today we're going to focus on how do you retain your people? I'm thrilled to introduce the wonderful Cassie Roma, Director and Founder of CR & Co. Cassie Roma is a powerhouse in the boardroom, in front of a camera, and speaking in front of local and global audiences on business and personal topics that impassion her. Yep, this California native is a powerhouse of business and entertainment. And after 18 years in New Zealand, she counts herself as a proud Yankee Kiwi, passionate about creative content, social media strategy, the influencer economy, and storytelling across mediums both emerging and traditional. Cassie has literally lived and breathed the digital revolution, all while steering the social media and digital storytelling ships for brands like Air New Zealand, ANZ Bank, Mighty River Power, NZME, and the Warehouse Group. As of 2021, Cassie can also chalk up advisor to the CEO on the New Zealand version of The Apprentice. She also has added the title of entrepreneur as she is currently founder and director of CR & Co. Her newest venture into storytelling for business, brand strategy, social media mastery, influencer marketing, and beyond. And she joins us today from LA. Secondly, I'd like to introduce Ben Thompson, CEO and founder of Employment Hero. With a background in finance and employment law, and as a business owner himself, Ben has over 20 years' experience in the Australian employment landscape. A self-confessed geek, Ben has boundless curiosity, enthusiasm, and ambition. He thrives on creative, innovative solutions and disruptive people management offerings that redefine markets. Ben credits his success on building a team of A players and communicating a clear vision to make managing employment easier and more valuable for everyone. Ben's adventurous spirit sent him backpacking around much of Asia, Europe, and South America. He has climbed Mount Blanc, several peaks in the Himalayas, and even mountain biked down a volcano in Ecuador. His latest pursuit is short-handed ocean racing. Cassie and Ben, welcome to today's panel. I'd love to start off by talking about the pre-pandemic employee retention. What did retention look like before COVID? And how has it perhaps changed since COVID? Cassie, I'd love to start with you. If you look back on what our world at work looked like pre-COVID, how important was employee retention to businesses?
Hi, thank you for that amazing intro. And holy cow, pre-COVID, let me just wind back the clock. It feels like it was forever ago, but also just a minute ago, doesn't it? I think for me, as I look back in the pre-COVID, the pre-work from home because we have to, adapt because we have to, learn new tech because we have to. And now look around and everybody's like pretty relaxed and chill. We're good with Zoom, right? We can meet anywhere, anytime from all over the world. But before that seemed like something that was maybe too hard or too far away. So from a retention perspective, in the pre-pandemic times, and I'm an optimist 100%, my heart would break quite a lot thinking about businesses and the ways in which retention fell under the auspices of doing what was best for the business a lot of the time instead of what was best for the human. So businesses would do a lot of things that felt like tick box exercises, where a lot of the time, what you just said from all of those numbers you mentioned, what people wanted really, we want opportunities. We would like to be rewarded, whether it's monetarily or with other things for those opportunities. And then also just to have someone give a damn. So I feel like in the pre-COVID times, there was almost this disconnect between the giving a damn and really actually caring, and then what businesses did. So retention became this kind of spinning wheel, because a lot of the time, the actual human and the humanity of employees, when it came to business and employee, they were separate instead of being together. And I feel like one of the beautiful things that has come out of COVID and that's come out of this time is that people actually care. And, I sit at home, my wife works for a bank in New Zealand, and I can hear my teenager on the phone with her schoolmates, and I can hear all of my other friends in and around meetings because we work at home. And it's amazing how much time people spend now checking in. How are you doing? How's your family? What are you up to? And I guess that's a point of like, you see somebody's dog every time you turn on your Zoom, or you see somebody holding their baby, or somebody has to run off and make a school lunch, and you just go, okay, we're all worthy and worthwhile. So I feel like COVID's going to change things for the better. I really do, from a retention perspective. What do you think,
Yeah,
Ben?
I love that.
Yeah, look, well, firstly, thanks for the warm welcome, Alex, and great to have you on, Cassie. And thanks for coming to us from LA. It's great to have somebody from the US checking in, even though you're a native Kiwi just about now. Definitely a big change. Just reflecting on the difference pre-COVID and post-COVID. Pre-COVID, we were obsessed with creating a workplace that people wanted to come to because they had to come there. So we wanted it to be as good as it could be when they arrived. Having the ping pong table, as every startup used to have, was very important. Having a great social environment. We've got a great bar in the office that we'd spend time at on a Friday night. It was all about creating an atmosphere that would be welcoming, and a culture that was centered around having people together in one place. That couldn't be more different now. We changed on the 13th of February 2020, Friday the 13th, auspicious date. We went remote first, and we've not gone back to the office. We have decided to stay remote first, and it is completely different. And some of the things that we've lost, like it was a great example of what you just said. You could go to the office and be busy all day, but never really check in with somebody. Now there's a lot more deliberate opportunities to check in with people and get to know them, even though they could be on the other side of the planet, as you are right now. You have more opportunity to spend more time one-on-one with people than before. So yeah, very, very different environment, and how we're engaging people and employing people has changed radically.
Yeah. And I was going to say, while you were saying that, Ben, I was thinking about, some of those times when we're working from home and we might feel like we're in a silo or we're by ourselves. And that moment when the Zoom comes up and you see other faces and you see your manager, or you see your colleague, and it just brings joy to a day to see another person when you are at home. So I feel like what you just said is so important. It's not the ping pong, it's not all of those things that are fun and that are great when you're actually in the same place, but it's the connection. Because I know one of the things that a lot of my friends and colleagues that I work with too now are dealing with, the extroverts. So I'm a bit of an introvert, so I'm fine working at home all day. But the extroverts that I know are going, how do we go back? I miss my friends, I miss my colleagues. So then I think as we move forward now and navigate, it's going to be, how do we navigate a system in which people do have a place to go to and gather, and work? And then how do we also pay tribute to the folks that really like working virtually?
Yeah, I love that whole factor about caring. And we've had a real focus on going remote first and making our hubs places to socially connect, or even if you live in the same area as someone, grab a coffee with them or lunch if you are an extrovert. I couldn't agree more though with both of you. I've certainly found from my experience, team catch-ups and even one-on-ones, when you were in the office because you were so bound by booking a meeting room, for example, sometimes they felt rushed, but now you really see managers taking the time to truly ask people, how are they doing? And have that care factor and that personal factor, which is just fantastic. I'd love to move on to talk about why do employees actually want to leave? So if we dig a little deeper, what are the external and internal factors that are making employees want to leave organisations, and are there warning signs? So Ben, all around the world, and especially in the UK, we have been seeing people switch roles, careers and lifestyles. What do you think COVID has taught us?
Well, I mean, we've done a lot of research. Employment Hero has done a lot of research in all markets, the UK, Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, and Malaysia, surveying people about why they are looking to switch roles, or if they are looking to switch roles. And there's some pretty obvious things. During the last couple of years with COVID, a lot of people initially, certainly here in Australia, and I'm sure in many other markets, were asked to take pay cuts to keep the business afloat. And they did it willingly, and many of them did it willingly and really sort of leaned into helping that business in difficult circumstances. But time passed, and I'm not sure that everyone got their pay increases and really felt that they were looked after and that things have gone back to normal. So our statistics say that the number one reason people are looking to leave is pay. And we're in a very candidate short market, so they're getting very high offers compared to their original salary, their original pre-COVID salary. So that's purely commercial. The second reason that we're finding people are looking to leave is very human, very completely opposite of commercial. It's about reward and recognition, and just being acknowledged and respected is what we as human beings want from life, whether it's at work or at home. We want to be respected and acknowledged for the effort that we put in. And employees are no different than anybody else. We're all just humans. I love our youngest child is in primary school, and I love visiting his school. Not that we can go onto the school grounds lately, but you go into a schoolroom in a primary school and you witness the most incredible lesson in how to motivate and engage people. Teachers have been taught that if you really want to engage people, there are very clever ways to do it. A golden star, we all look at it now as adults and sort of cringe on. You used to get a golden star and a stamp on your book and a smiley face on the top of your exam paper and special privileges and just being, really kids to be engaged have to be rewarded for their effort and have to be given special treatment to keep them fully engaged. For some reason, people think that all disappears when we become adults. It doesn't. All the reasons that we love that as children remain until the day we die. We just stop remembering it, and for some reason we think that everyone grows out of it. Now, I'm not saying that we should treat people like they're primary school students, but we certainly shouldn't forget that if you want to retain people, reward and recognition is something that is incredibly important and that goes to the heart of making people feel wanted by their organisation, the people they're working with and for. And you have to do it, and you have to do it frequently and do it well.
Mm.
Great. And Cassie, with such a large group of people around the world looking to leave their roles in the next 6 months, how do you think businesses have contributed to this mass exodus?
I think there are a few different ways. Just Ben, what you were just saying there, the things that really hit me and resonated around the recognition and reward was that what comes in with that recognition and reward is also that underlying value of appreciation, right? And of feeling appreciated. So that's what the kids are feeling. The reason that they need that reward is because that makes them feel appreciated and valued and seen and all of that kind of stuff. So the star means something that actually has value. And it's, it's not a thing, it's not money. And I think the same goes with businesses, which leads into your question. So with people looking to leave their roles in the next 6 to 12 months, I think the idea of reward and recognition has become quite transactive in a way that isn't human, just intrinsically human anymore. Sometimes reward and recognition can simply be kind words. And that all of this comes down to, for every single person who wants to leave a job or is looking for another job, it comes down to, do they have opportunities to grow and change? I think we should definitely start normalizing the idea of people being able to change their roles. I firmly do not believe in, this is Ben's lane, this is Alex's lane, this is Cassie's lane, now we all stay in it. I feel like we're all in the same car driving the same roads. And if we want to take a little back road and figure out what's back there, that's a cool thing too. I think the second people become disengaged, the second they stop being passionate about their work, the second they start feeling like they have to protect and defend their turf, and the second that they also start to feel like they're not growing as a human, that's the moment. That's when they go. When you go back to then the pay conundrum as well, that's a big one. I can remember back all the way in university, so many, many moons ago, I had a business teacher, a professor, and she said to me, Cassie, it will behoove you in your professional life to leave a role every 2 years, because instead of every 2 years getting a 1% pay rise, as a woman specifically, you can potentially get a 10 to 30% pay rise every time you change not only careers, but businesses. And that stuck with me. And she was right. I went from like a $30,000 job to a 50, from a 50 to an 80, from an 80 to a 110, from a 110 to 150. And it was like that, instead of waiting around for my 1% every year. So I think businesses and brands, regardless of size, first and foremost, need to know their people. Because what works for Cassie is not the same as what works for Alex, is not the same as what works for Ben. Some of us need time, some of us need words of affirmation, and some of us need cold hard cash, or all of the above. So understanding your people is one thing that I don't think businesses do well. I think businesses really have been taught to separate emotion and logic, where they run side by side. They are train tracks. We are human beings, not human doings. And so I think the exodus in and of itself is like, well, if the business doesn't care about me, then I'm going to look elsewhere, because I care about me and I care about my growth. So I think that's what it's contributed to. And I don't think businesses are full of uncaring people, but I think that the care needs to be put right back in there, and fast.
I think
That's great. And yeah, you go, Ben.
Yeah, if I can, sorry, Alex. I think that we've got to acknowledge as well that over the last couple of years with COVID, there's been a huge social experiment. People got to stop and reflect on how they wanted to work, where they wanted to work, why they wanted to work. They've had more time than ever to think about those things, and really practical changes happened. People realized, and I know that the whole remote working and working online it has been done to death, but people realize that actually, if I have the flexibility to live somewhere else and work differently, and I have more time in my day, it's beneficial for me, it's beneficial for my family, it's beneficial for my business, for my employer, because I'm more productive. And now they're faced with a decision. Do I have to go back to the way things were, or can I keep doing things the way that I prefer? And if they get a whiff that they are going to be forced into going back to the way things were, they will be out the door before you can count to three. Like it's just obvious. So that would be another big reason that I think people are considering moving.
Well, it's a breaking of trust, isn't it? Because you're saying to people, I trust you to do your work from home. I trust you to finish this. I trust you to be a professional and adult. But now that we come back, I don't trust you anymore. And it's just a funny little sandpaper feeling that's going on.
Absolutely. And Cassie, you touched on disengagement and when employees kind of make that decision to leave. Can either of you speak to what employers need to look out for that might be indicative that someone is considering leaving?
Sure. I think from my perspective, again, it is, and maybe COVID will be the great awakening from this perspective. And you mentioned it earlier, Alex, like when we were in an office, we were bound by the timeframes of meeting rooms, how many people we could fit into a day, everything. With COVID, everything's a bit more flexible. I think that the biggest thing around understanding if someone's engaged or disengaged is communication, right? If you can communicate with your employees, you'll know, because some people will straight out tell you, I am not engaged right now, and here's why. And other people will just show you. It'll be a slacking off of performance. It'll be a lack of joining in on the Friday night Zooms for the social time. It'll be all of these different things. And I think as long as you keep your eyes open and treat people as if you're coaching them, as if you care, you truly care, then you'll be able to see those things. But I don't think there's a one size fits all for red flags.
I think the best way to know if somebody's likely to leave is to ask them. You know, having a one-on-one every week is an opportunity to say, how are you feeling? And, you know, on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you? You know, and if you have those discussions and there is trust and you have good communication, some weeks people will say, I'm a 3. This project's gone, you know, off the rails. Don't feel like I'm achieving anything. I'm tired. Oh, okay, now I understand. Now, how can we fix that? You know, let's work together. What are your career aspirations? How often do you ask people that? You know, a weekly one-on-one is literally asking people, how are you feeling? Are you with us? Or are you thinking of going somewhere? And having an open and honest communication. If you're not doing that, you're going to get surprised. If you check in with people once a year for their performance review and say, how are you doing? They're like, well, I'm sorry, I'm giving my notice, and it'll feel like it was a big surprise. You just failed to communicate. So you shouldn't be caught by surprise if you can communicate and communicate frequently.
And I think as
That's right.
leaders as well, we need to provide that psychological safety for someone to feel safe enough to open up that conversation. And part of that is, as leaders, we sometimes need to be vulnerable ourselves. No one has just sailed through COVID and lockdown. And I think it's important that if you're having a bad day, you let your team know that, so that they know you're human as a leader. And sometimes you don't have great days, or sometimes your project has gone downhill and you're disappointed in yourself. And it's really important to allow yourself to be that vulnerable, just so that your team can hear it from you.
Totally.
Yeah.
I just think we should sit on that one for a minute, Alex. That is gold. That is, from a leadership perspective, being able to be vulnerable means that there's that two-way trust between human beings. And I know with the businesses that I worked for and the highly engaged teams that I've built, most of the people that have worked alongside me, I would still consider family. And that's because they allowed me to go through deaths and births and marriages and divorces just as they did. And again, that just strengthens that leadership bond, and it keeps people. It helps with retention.
Absolutely. And so, Cassie, I might stick with you on this one, and it's all around how do we keep our best people. So how do we keep people engaged? We have talked about career progression, trust, vulnerability, psychological safety. So what can we do that's beyond the tangible in terms of keeping people?
I think Ben nailed it on the head there with the last thing that he said. When we look at keeping people, it's about consistent communication. So it's not even always trying to nail things in that weekly whip. I used my wife as an example because she is literally working from our kitchen table and I hear everything that goes on. And some of the time when she's meeting with like the legal team, they will take 40 minutes of a 45-minute meeting and they will check in with each other. And that wasn't a whip. That wasn't what they were supposed to be talking about. And then they'll come back and they'll talk about the project work and everything else. So it's been fascinating to me to see just how almost seamlessly easy it has been for her and her business to want to stick around and stay, simply by that consistent feedback and that consistent talking. And I think from a leadership perspective, it might have been Simon Sinek who said, if you don't actually care about the people in your care, you need to pass them on to somebody who can care about them. So if there are personality clashes, if there are things that just aren't working out between two people, don't automatically go, one has to leave the business. Figure out where people can go, where a leader can care about that person. That has just always stuck with me and gone, yeah, that's how you actually put heart counts before head counts. And then there's also the thing where if people feel loved and engaged and like they're going to work with people who are rowing their ship in the same direction, then money almost becomes a secondary instead of a primary driver. I've seen a lot of people go, I got offered 60 grand more for this job, but I can't imagine working for a better place than I am now. So there's no way I'm leaving. And when I see people like that, I go, wow, that's the culture you want.
Yeah, I love that, heart counts instead of head counts. We got so much good feedback through COVID and the first lockdown just about how caring Ben was as a CEO and checking in, especially with our expats who weren't doing well. Moving on to you, Ben, I know you know a lot about reward and recognition, and it is one of the top factors that people are looking for when they move to a new company. What can we do to help businesses lean in to reward and recognition?
Let me come back to that because I just want to, Cassie said something, said a name that resonated with me, Simon Sinek. In terms of how do you keep people, Simon Sinek's other book, Start With Why, is kind of is the answer. You've got to recruit people who use the same word, passionate, about what the business exists to do, the purpose of the company. If somebody's passionate about working with dogs and cats and they're working in an insurance company, they're probably not going to be that engaged with what they're doing. If they would probably prefer to be working in an animal hospice, and they'd probably be very happy working in an animal hospice for much less money if it was something they really cared about. It's just making sure you recruit people who are deeply engaged with the purpose of the business. And if your business doesn't have a clear and compelling purpose, then spend a couple of days meditating on it and come up with something that, be clear on why you exist and what you're out there to do, and then find the people who want to engage with that. So that is sort of off script, but incredibly important. In terms of reward and recognition, a couple of things are really important. I mean, reward and recognition is about psychology, and there are ways to motivate people. When you think about reward and recognition, it's positive psychology, positive reinforcement. Now, it's a little bit, if you've read The 7 Habits, there's the emotional bank account. You can make a deposit into somebody's emotional bank account by saying something positive, giving them positive reinforcement. But the thing to realize is that when you take something out of somebody's emotional bank account, the ratio is 4-1. So every criticism affects somebody negatively 4 times more than every positive statement that you make. So if you're going to do reward and recognition well, you have to do it 4 times more on the positive side than you do on the negative side. Now, in a business environment, when you're trying to get people to deliver a project at 100% accuracy, it's very easy to sort of pick people up on their faults and criticize them for getting things wrong. And if you're doing that, then you've got to realize you've got to do 4 times more positive reinforcement than what you're doing naturally in a negative way. So reward and recognition is quite not only important, but a very definitive thing. You need to make sure you're doing it frequently, in the right ways, as often as you possibly can. And you'll know you're doing it just enough when it feels like you're doing it 10 times more than you ever thought you would. And it's quite hard to maintain. So having a program in place for reward and recognition is really important. Starting some easy ways to do that. Starting meetings with celebrations, something we do. What's happened since our last meeting that's worth recognizing? Who's been helping you that's worth recognizing? It doesn't even matter if it's not work related. Just start with something positive. Shout outs, making sure that everyone in the organization stops to recognize the people around them who are the wind in their sails. You can't see wind, but it does do a lot for you, and you need to stop and appreciate where it comes from and who's helping you. So shouting out your colleagues, and as managers, shouting out the people who are really contributing well. And even if they're not contributing well because they're in difficult circumstances, call out the fact that they're doing their best in the circumstances that they're in. So lots and lots of positive recognition. Another thing that goes wrong with reward and recognition is when it's only verbal. You know, we're doing it a lot, we're celebrating everybody, but there comes a point where the sort of marginal, to use an economics term, the marginal utility of positive reinforcement starts to lose it. It's just, Ben always says Ben always starts a meeting with a celebration, but he doesn't mean it. You know, it just happens. It's just what he does, but he doesn't really mean it. And at that point, when you've done a lot of positive recognition, you need to make it tangible. Now, that could be anything from a certificate, you know, a letter, a card that's signed by somebody, a thank you note. It could be points, like Employment Hero has a reward and recognition program where people get hero dollars. But you need to make sure that it's not compensation. It can't be a bonus. A bonus goes into a joint bank account, like me and my wife's joint bank account, and it gets spent on the kids' school books and the kids' clothes and haircuts and all of those basics. And it doesn't really feel like anything special. So it has to be very personal. It has to be very specific. It has to be given frequently, and it has to be tangible. So yeah, reward and recognition is an important part of being a manager, and something that we need to practice becoming good at.
Fantastic, thanks. We're running short on time. We've got quite a few questions, which I might jump to. The first one is, how do you encourage old school managers to actually communicate with their employees? One-on-ones are non-existent. They barely even do quarterly reviews.
Ooh, Ben, do you want to go with that one?
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm a bit blunt, but I'd make it part of their role. Like,
Yep.
I'm sorry, you now are expected to have a one-on-one with each of your reports once a week. I know it's going to take you 3 or 4 hours or maybe 5 hours, but the rewards of doing that are going to be great. You'll have better people. They'll be better aligned. You'll understand how they're thinking and how to motivate them better. And so I want you to do it. That's part of your role now. You must do it. Simple.
And I think too, from the perspective of whoever was asking this question, if that is already part of the old school leader's role and they're just not doing it, and there's been like no punishment or no redressing or addressing of it, then one of the best things that you can do to empower yourself and to put yourself in a position of feeling engaged is to tell that old school manager, say, hey, I need a check-in. If you don't feel safe, we talked about safety and security earlier, then that's a whole other kettle of fish too. And those things should always be, you know, escalated if you're not feeling like you are being seen or heard or valued, or that somebody's not doing what they need to do to engage your team. It's okay to escalate that.
Absolutely. And I think making it a cadence across the business as well empowers employees who might not have a one-on-one booked in to actually just book it in with their manager. If it's just known as cadence, you're then empowering someone to actually book it in as a regular thing in their manager's calendar. The next one from Maria: what is the best way to teach our staff about psychological safety? Aside from our leadership style and the way we run our business, should we provide articles and training?
Ooh, definitely. Empowered minds are powerful minds. If you find one of the things that we did at Air New Zealand, Air New Zealand did such great reward and recognition and had all the different tiers we talked about, you know, the way that you start your meetings, Ben, with the recognition style thing, but then it would be like a bottle of wine sometimes, a certificate sometimes, dependent on the project. But one of the things that that you can do in that space is just keep going through that, keep remembering. And if you find something that you love, and that, like we both mentioned Simon Sinek already, I love Brene Brown and her FFTs. Every time something comes in where my brain goes, whoa, that's amazing, I have no hesitation in sending that to my team or my colleagues and my coworkers. And then you start to create this beautiful little, as you said earlier, cadence of people feeling safe to share stuff. And maybe that's every Friday, everybody shares a link, and it just becomes part of what you already do. But yeah, share stuff, share knowledge. Knowledge is power and empowerment.
And I couldn't reinforce Brene Brown anymore. Podcasts are fantastic. And also Amy Edmondson. She's the original person that actually came up with psychological safety. I think she's at Wharton or Harvard. Next question. Under the reward and recognition that Ben spoke about, positive reinforcements cannot all save people from leaving. What are other things that can be done? There are times that I have heard the company does not only, they do nothing tangible.
So beyond reward, I think we've kind of covered some of this, but beyond reward and recognition, so purpose, like think of it like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You know, are people capable? Do they have trust? So we at Employment Hero, we actually have our own hierarchy of employment needs, and it starts with trust. If you don't have trust, then you can't build on it. You're building on sand. So do you have trust in the relationship? Secondly, do you provide competitive compensation? You know, if you're underpaying people and they can earn more elsewhere, then you're not going to be retaining people very well. Thirdly, are you aligned? Is everyone aligned with the purpose of the business, and do they really feel passionate about where it's going, and are you communicating that well? Fourthly, are you training people to be the best they can be? People are looking for education. They're looking for opportunity. Fifthly, are you giving people challenging problems? Like if they have everything below this and you get to a point where they feel empowered, they feel confident, they've been well trained, they have trust, then they're looking for challenging problems that they can really feel good about solving problems. And then you've got a business with everybody's in that condition where at the top of the pyramid, they are aligned, they're powerful, they're capable, and they want to eat problems for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And that's what business is. It's solving problems every single day. And the bigger the problems, the better. And that's where you want to get to, is giving people all of those things.
That's certainly the magic.
Right. The next one is an interesting one. How do you call out the leadership team when they're demotivating staff by excluding people from invites to events and only inviting those who are their favorites or the extroverts?
Ooh, the old playground rules. That's a tough one. That's a tough one because, well, it's a tough one, but it's not. I think what we've been saying this entire time, and it's hard because it's scary to speak up sometimes, especially I know in New Zealand, culturally, you want to shine, but not shine too bright. I don't know if the tall poppy exists in Australia as well.
Oh, definitely.
And it's hard, right? We are told there's the exec up here, and then you've got your layers to a business. Well, sometimes I just say, F it. You need to call it out. There's been multiple times in my career where I've had to go into an executive's office and go, hey, this isn't fair. We're all humans. This is what people are saying. Here's what we're thinking. Here's how we're feeling. Can you explain why this is happening? And if there's no good explanation, then you get to decide whether or not that's the kind of a culture you want to stay in. And again, that's what we're talking about, this great exodus. If the exec doesn't pull finger, we're all humans. Whether you're cleaning the toilets or you're making the big bucks in the exec's chair, we're all humans. And if you're not feeling the love and the value, my mom always used to tell me it's easier to find a job when you already have one. So go look. You're allowed to leave.
I think just another thing that I think executives should be taught or told is that they exist to make the jobs of the people easier for the people that are working with their customers. You know, it's the whole inverted org chart. You know, the CEO serves the people who are working for the customer, and the CEO shouldn't be treating people with special privileges because they're they're closer to the top of the executive. They should be giving the special privileges to the ones who are working at the coalface with their customers. And if you have an executive team who doesn't understand that the org tree is upside down, and that they are actually there to serve their customers and the people who serve their customers, then it's time to sort of shake it up a little.
Thank you. Next one is, how do you engage with a team when their leader is disengaged, but the members of the team are thirsty for engagement and excited about their roles? I'll jump in first here. I'd recommend that as a leader of a leader, you start to do skip level one-on-ones. Of course, you can't do them, you've only got so much time in a week. So maybe once a quarter or even every 6 months, go and do that skip level one-on-one. Make sure you're transparent with your managers that you're going to do it. You'll be really surprised at not just the insights you get on the manager and how they can improve. Also, you might get ideas and insights on those frontline people who are talking to your customers where you're not as close to that because you are a leader of leaders. Cassie or Ben, I don't know if you have other advice.
I agree with you completely on that. Because another great thing about those skip meetings is that people feel, again, they trust, they feel safe, they feel secure, and that will be the leader that works for you, and their team start to feel that. And it's one of those things where you know this is a little safe area where we can all have chats. And I'm just doing this so that just in case we're all connected and we understand. It all comes back right to the beginning to how we connect as humans. We are all people. So having those conversations, it's all about this, isn't it? It's about being open and feeling safe to have those conversations.
Yeah, definitely. And go and speak to the people who are talking to your customers. It's not just skipping one level, it's skipping every level, because the person who, there's a lot of Chinese whispers. You say something once and you think that everybody got it, and then a year later you find out that they've been saying something completely different because it was Chinese whispers all the way down. And the only way to get around that is to go and literally spend time with the frontline crew who are talking to your customers and listen to what they're saying, hear what their problems are, and solve them for them. And then go back and speak to everyone in between you and those people to make sure you're on the same page.
Fantastic. The next one, how do you truly influence senior leadership to adopt flexible work when they are indignant that staff have to come back to the office? Ben's pretty passionate about this one.
Use facts. If they're smart managers, then they'll respond to facts. And the facts are that we're in the most candidate short market that we've seen in decades, if not my entire career. And if you're struggling to retain and find people, the best way to retain and find people is to remove a fundamental constraint, which is geography, from recruitment. Like we just discovered that in the world during COVID, we discovered that recruitment is an unnecessary constraint. Sorry, geography is an unnecessary restraint to recruitment. People can work really well no matter where they live, if they're knowledge workers, admittedly. And so if you're forcing people to come back to the office, you're creating a talent pool that lives within 20 or 30 kilometers of that office. That's not very smart. You're not going to be the best on the planet if you're recruiting from a tiny little talent pool. Yeah.
And going back to stats, if you really do want data, we did a survey in 2020 and it showed that 92% of people want remote work and flexible work. And we did it again this year and that's jumped to 94% of workers. So you are absolutely damaging your EVP and you're at risk of not just losing people, but not attracting the best people if you don't go remote first. And I think that leaves us out of time. Thank you, Cassie and Ben, so much for joining us. Cassie from LA, it's been an absolute pleasure and all of your insights have been incredible. And Ben, also thank you. I know how busy you both are, so much appreciated. Thank you everyone for attending. We'll try and get to the questions that we didn't get to. A lot of them were answered throughout the discussion and we look forward to seeing you next week on our next Talent Wars 2022 webinar. Have a great afternoon, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks, Cassie.
Bye. Thanks, Alex. Thanks, Ben.